Hello, and thank you very much for the intro and the Zoom protocol clarity to it. And a huge thank you to Mark and Tom from Crossover Labs who are curating this wondrous and innovative conference and festival, Electric Dreams Online. So my name is Dan Tucker, and I'm an independent immersive curator, commissioner, and producer working for the BBC, Arts Council, BFI, and many other lovely folk. Today, I have the pleasure and privilege of moderating this panel, XR, the Abandoned Playground, in which we'll be exploring a possible pivot shift in our sector. We'll be asking, is XR or immersive still an arena of artistic experimentation, or are all eyes now on enterprise? What does this mean? How are things changing? What will happen next? And how do we feel about it? So without further ado, I would like to ask my panelists to introduce themselves quickly and tell us about their involvement, first of all, in the XR playground, the playtime that we've had up until this point. And if it's okay, guys, I'm going to ask you to try and stick to just a couple of minutes. So perhaps we could start with you, Lauren, if that's okay.
Sure. Hey, Dan. My name's Lauren Hammonds. I am Senior Programmer of Film and Immersive at Tribeca Film Festival in New York City, in the USA. I have been very privileged to be a part of the playground that I hope is not being abandoned at the moment, in order to really create spaces for work within the XR realm. Specifically, my interest is in storytelling, and also just the excitement of experimentation in both creation and in exhibition. Those are passions of mine, and I think passions of everyone on this panel, from my understanding. So I'm very excited to talk about this and kind of see if we can forge our way into the future, because there are definitely still some question marks.
Right on. Okay, Maria,
Yes.
over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Actually, it's so great to see so many friendly faces, people that we've known each other now quite for a while, actually, through the festival circuit. So yeah, I've been in the XR space since 2014. Started actually out at Samsung, based in London, where I was responsible for Samsung's Gear VR and launching that hardware across European markets. Then after that, I had a little bit shorter tenure at Microsoft, working on the HoloLens project, which was super exciting, which is largely about remote collaboration, actually. Then in between, I also worked with a couple of indie gaming studios on an AR game and VR game. And I also worked with Raindance Film Festival here in London, which is UK's biggest indie film festivals and actually Europe's biggest indie film festivals, as their curator, and curated 3 seasons of Raindance Immersive. And since July 2018, I've been with HTC Vive, based here in London, and driving content partnerships and content acquisitions, working across the entertainment sector, covering various verticals such as games, media, film, narrative, also working a lot with film festivals, and yeah, all kinds of indie creators as well.
Thank you, Maria. Kim Lee, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you feel about the XR playground.
Hey Dan, hi everyone. I'm Kim Lee. I'm creative director at Nexus Interactive Arts. So I'm a creative director as well as specializing in directing interactive volumetric and motion capture experiences and interactive narrative for emerging tech. So I am very excited about the state of the XR playground, because I play in it. I play in it all day. Yeah, I certainly don't think it's abandoned, or if it is abandoned, then I'm enjoying playing in the abandoned world. But I don't think it is abandoned. There seem to be lots of people in this fun sandpit. So yeah, I agree with everybody else so far that it's still a very thriving place to be. Lots of room for all the fun things that we love about storytelling, embodied interaction, speculative design, and you know, crossing the worlds of gaming and film and TV production, and also user experience design and product design as well. All these things mixed together.
Thank
Happy
you.
to be here.
And finally, Mike Ogden.
Hey, Dan. Hi, Tue. Like Maria, I came across VR in 2014. Like Kim, I'm a creative director. Like Lauren, my background is in storytelling and really in film and games. I first came across VR as a creative director at Sony PlayStation, where I was there for about 5 years leading concepts. And we were kind of tackling interactive narratives. And around 2014, like we're kind of first tackling those first prototypes that led to Project Morpheus, that led into VR Worlds for PlayStation. And so it's kind of like, you know, this fantastic problem-solving exercise of like, how do you tell stories that are character-driven using with VR? And since then, I directed a VR game called Mad Factory that went out into arcades. I directed a VR narrative, which is a longer story out of this time, but there was a lot of learnings from that, and actually a desire to, like, how do you balance narrative and game, you know, in that experience. And most recently, I'm directing a new VR platform that allows people to access live talks and events in a virtual space. So how can you allow people to explore an environment, also watch live content and on demand, as well as connect with other people. So that's what's taking up time now. But thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Okay. Well, let's get into it then. So, I mean, we've all been involved with VR for quite a while now, like 5-6 years, which in VR dog years is about 50 years or something crazy. What are your highlights? Is there good and bad in the time that we've been able to play without any strict objectives? I want to pick out some of the weird outliers, the things that you know, like, well, you know, you just would never have expected to see before, like a really interesting experience that felt like it was just given total freedom and it's joyous for it. So who shall I start with? I'll start with you, Maria.
Yeah, sure. Okay, the kind of aha moment for me, and interestingly enough, it kind of plays into the topic today, was the first time I experienced being in VR simultaneously with another person, so a multiplayer experience. And it was in a more of a kind of theatrical setting, which then kind of obviously opened up the playground to immersive theatre. And quite frankly, at the time of this very first demo, which I do believe it was something like 2015, I thought first that I'm talking to an AI, and it took me about 2 minutes to figure out that it's actually a real person who's interacting with me. Because by default, I just said, yeah, sure, this is, you know, tech solve this problem. But then I realized that the conversation is way too natural, way too real time. Yeah, so that was the kind of real aha moment from, well, one of the many aha moments, because I think even these days, every now and then you experience something which brings an aha moment.
What was the experience?
It was actually a very, very early demo of a I mean, that prototype, I don't think it ever came to fruition, but it was just a tech demo of what a social or a multi-person VR experience could be. Yeah. And there were some, you know, zero gravity environments and kind of fun things.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 2017 Venice Festival, DV Group, Matthias Schelleborg, Alice. And then also the live performance that he directed, which was actually at Tribeca, which I'm sure Lauren can talk about a lot more. Jack, that was a brilliant one. So yeah, there's definitely something between, you know, the crossover of virtual and real, and especially if it involves real people and live actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and from there on, I to this date, I mean, you know, became a heavy user of VR chat actually in the last 3 months. But I'm sure we'll get on that point later.
No problem.
That's a good segue to you, Lauren. You know, there's been a lot of play between the physical and the virtual, hasn't there? And Maria's right. I mean, you've had some crazy big projects over at Tribeca. Do you want to pick up on that, the connection between physical and virtual, and the play state that we've had?
Yeah, of course. No, it's like you said, it is like dog years, right? Like when you see how quickly things have advanced from us having swivel chairs and Gear VRs to actually having fully realized theatrical productions that incorporate XR in really, really special and surprising ways. You know, a piece like Jack is definitely something that people remember, and that is, you know, a piece from Baobab Studios and Matthias that Maria mentioned. That's a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk, but with a live motion captured actor, where you are essentially playing, you know, the role of Jack, but you are in a theatrical performance suddenly when you've stepped through. So I think these things really opened people's eyes to what the possibilities were. But for me, I think my aha moment of exhibition kind of evolving in different ways of showing work was when I saw, and I kind of wandered into the Punch Drunk Believe Your Eyes experience many years ago, where, you know, it was just a seamless interaction of live actor and simple 360. And then also the beautiful lighting and set design that is revealed at a certain point. I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but that piece really got me thinking in terms of what the possibilities are in exhibition and in a festival setting and in a location-based setting. Also, I think it really was the years of showing amazing work that still didn't have an opportunity to really have a proper distribution platform. And I think creators started recognizing that as well, that this is a playground for LBE, where this is a whole new distribution channel that people can use, and hopefully, you know, people will leave their houses. If they're not willing to buy headsets to watch this great work, maybe they can leave their houses and put a headset on. So I think that was also like a huge breakthrough in what we're all doing. And of course, there's the question now as to when that can return.
Yeah, and I've just realized that actually, and I didn't mean it like this, but XR, the abandoned playing ground, I don't actually mean festivals, okay, guys? I don't actually mean festivals. Like, down to the festivals, that ain't happening no more. I don't mean that. People are still going to be going to festivals. But they are, but you're right, festivals have been these playgrounds of creativity. I meant that a bit more as a kind of meta-narrative, but absolutely had extraordinary experiences at festivals, and that is a place to go and experience extraordinary. And I've experienced some extraordinary experiences made by you, Kim, that have been in festivals. I wonder, like, without purely talking about your own work, whether you have other stories to share about the kind of crazy experiences that you've got to grips with in either festival settings or not festival settings, that feel like, wow, this is unfettered. They just had a chance to play.
Yeah, I mean, there've been so many. It's hard to just pull, and there's so much variety as well. That's why it's such a great medium, is because you can literally do anything. I mean, like Maria, the first time I went into a social experience, I think I was in Alt Space in like 2015 or 2016, and I was at work and trying to get people at work to try this weird thing. Yeah. And like, I somehow ended up in I think it was an Alcoholics Anonymous like group in there. Like, I went down some portal and there was some kind of intervention going on. And I arrived accidentally at this time. And this guy got really mad at me and somebody who was from work popping up in there. And he's like, if anyone in here isn't an addict, can you please leave the room? And we're like, oh, fine. But, it was just so random that you could just the context, the fact that you could just switch context like that with no warning and it was crazy and exciting and surreal and such a great storytelling tool. But then, of course, the user experience really sucked. The fact that you could do that. I mean, it's fun, but it's awful. Terrible
and hilarious and tragic.
All of those things. It was almost like and I love MySpace at the time as well. It was almost like MySpace was like, 100 years ago. But then, in terms of great user experience, things like Jack, which I saw at wonderful Tribeca, the onboard, so you go in, you've got this backpack on, and the first thing you see was this light bulb swinging from the ceiling, and you're compelled to just touch it. And then you realize it's a real object in your hand. And then you get the entire user experience from that one action. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay, there's no onboarding, there's no tutorial, there's nobody having to tell you what to do. That's incredible. Once we can get to that level for everything, user experience design is really important, and it's hard to crack in a lot of these things, but that really, really did crack it for me. And then another one also at Tribeca was lovely Lucas Risotto, the Where Thoughts Go, in terms of collaborative storytelling and letting participants put up their own stories and share them with each other. And it was so moving. You definitely had to wipe the tears off the headset before you got back in from the previous person. But that was, if the measure of a medium is, to be able to move people, emotionally affect people, that was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
Kim Lee, you actually reminded me of your graduation project at the Royal College of Art, which was immersive theatre.
It was, wasn't it?
And there was this actress who came with a rose. Well, I had to hold the rose, and they picked me out from the crowd and took me down the rabbit hole, kind of into a separate room. But yeah, and that was, I don't know, 2014, 2015. Yeah. So you're a pioneer yourself. It was a brilliant experience, and it was a combination of obviously live performance and then in essence a trade-off experience on a Gear VR, which obviously that was the headset of the time, but it was just brilliant.
But there was also AR in between.
Oh yes, there was.
Then
pass-through camera.
Yeah.
Looking at these set television boxes.
Yeah.
And, Mike, do you have a favorite moment of crazy play?
I have.
AR, MR, all the R's.
I think all the R's. For me, the initial attraction were two things going on. One, that I saw people were using VR as a way to create empathy with, very kind of internal thinking. And so I don't remember all the titles, but there was one that I saw early on where a woman was trying to express what her internal monologue was on a train, where she was being there was kind of sounded like there was an assault happening. She was being confronted, but she was also dealing with her own mental health. I thought that was interesting. Notes on blindness was interesting. It was like, okay, people are using this as a way to convey an interior monologue. I think that was interesting for me to see, how to use this immersive audio and immersive visuals to share that, because normally you see that in a novel, this is that monologue. I also think, personally, as a medium, the thing that I love is a blank page, and I love working with people who are kind of enthusiastic problem solvers who are like, okay, well, we don't know how to invent this, but let's draw, from our strengths, and let's figure out how we can speak to each other, have a common language. And I saw that, it was necessary across the board. So it really appeals to me when people are like, all right, let's figure this out. We do not know how to do it. So, working cross-disciplinary, whether it's technical producers or project managers or artists or coders, just across the board, kind of scratching heads and going, all right, how does this work? And then being able to onboard, clients and saying, look, this is how this medium works and how it's different. Working with people who are from film background, a lot of conversations around, all right, well, we built this narrative, so thinking about story structure, and this is how the protagonist works, and this is how how do you, there's another conversation, but how do you have transformation, with a protagonist in a story with VR? And I remember having a conversation with a VP at a film company, and he was like, well, I want to kill that character. Can we get rid of that character? But that character was very functional in terms of the design of explaining how the interactions worked and, the VR. So it becomes the web of how any experience hangs together. Everything, it's both creative and functional. And I guess bringing people on board to understand that is an interesting challenge, one that, I like. So it's, I guess, the fact that there's a blank page and there's smart people trying to tackle it from many different angles. I love that kind of dialogue.
That's lovely. So what's come up quite a few times in just this initial conversation is where the physical meets the virtual. And we're at a place right now where we can't do that. I mean, we can't do that as much. We can do it a little bit, but it's super hard right now. It's super hard to stage that kind of work. It's super hard to develop in that way. And so we are seeing some rumblings in the immersive community about some rumblings. And I think this is true, but you can take me to task if I'm wrong. There's some rumblings about location-based immersive experiences, because up until this point, I think all of us here have been thinking about LBE, and we've been thinking about the cultural consumption of VR in public spaces, and we're super excited about that. And pandemic has hit a big pause on that, right? And it's made it really hard to go and experience those kind of experiences or to make them. So in writing this panel, I wanted to examine whether we think there is a bit of a pivot shift initially away from location-based entertainment, and now, as a result of that, towards enterprise, which is like, well, this will come back, but right now we can't do it. And you know what we really need to do? We need to co-work, co-locate, co-attend. What do you think? What are your first thoughts on that? Am I wrong, or is the industry actually standing by LBE, or are you noticing that big pivot shift also?
Definitely pivot shift.
Yeah.
I mean, what's happening in the XR collaboration space right now? Anything that happened before, all the developments that happened before kind of March this year, after March, it just kind of exploded. And what was really remarkable was seeing companies, how quickly they adapted, how quickly anything from smaller startups to bigger companies, how this shift to we hosted our own developer conference, which was attended by thousands of people in Engage platform, and I think the production time for that was weeks. Yeah. It just came about really quickly. Or equally what the guys at the Museum of Other Realities have been doing. I'm sure they're over flooded with asks about hosting events, but initially this is a platform for digital virtual art and really utilizing VR as a medium for VR art. And suddenly, they kind of transitioned and shifted to hosting festivals. Or for example, yesterday they hosted an event for London Fashion Week, Fabric of Fashion, with 3 fashion designers that were paired up with tail brush artists. The display was beautiful, really an incredible event. But in a way, if there's one good thing about pandemic, is that it accelerated all the development, and it happened really fast. Yeah. And sure, there are still so many learnings and so many things that need to be ironed out. Very many of these solutions, like social instancing and being able to put many people into a social instance simultaneously is a huge technical challenge. However, it's a start. We are on the train. The train is moving, and I don't think it's going to go away. It's going to stay. Yeah. Because even, for example, if we take film festivals, yes, sure, they will happen in real life when they can, but the virtual space extends and brings them new audiences that can't necessarily afford to travel to the location, or just can't travel, or don't want to travel. And that's the beauty of VR, that it's really the perfect medium to help us and enable us to do this. And then isn't it fun to be just a butter stick in VR or a Final Fantasy avatar character? I use those a lot, actually. And I have a friend who loves the butter stick.
Maria.
Yeah, so there's definitely room for even individual self-exploration and self-expression, and kind of, diving deeper into identity, which probably is a totally different panel.
Yeah, that's certainly been grounds for the playground for a long time. But going back to what you're saying about acceleration, we've definitely seen acceleration. But we've also seen, perhaps for some very big companies, acceleration away from creative content to enterprise. So I want to talk to you, Lauren, about the news with Magic Leap and with Bose AR, both huge tech companies with huge commissioning budgets that seemingly overnight closed down the creative department to focus on enterprise.
Yeah, it's I mean, it is a bit disheartening to see that, but at the same time, I mean, I think this pivot shift ultimately will be less of a total divergence and more of an enhancement to everything. Like those two companies, you know, I'm not privy to their books, but I do know that they had, you know, particularly Magic Leap, had a lot of pressure. They have a lot of pressure on them to deliver something really magical, you know, really remarkable. And they definitely were on their way there. And I believe that they still can achieve that. But I do understand that enterprise is an important part of that business, particularly when you're dealing with mixed reality and augmented reality. It's always been that way. I think, you know, with HoloLens, Microsoft had no intention, from my, you know, to my knowledge, to make that primarily an entertainment headset. And if they did, then the pricing was way off. But you know, you've seen it happen even all the way back to Google Glass, where people were excited of what the possibilities were to have this spatial computing on your face, and then said, well, maybe it's not for my everyday. But then it blew up hugely in enterprise, and there are factories that use this hardware. But when I think of the enhancement of it, though, it is, and especially with co-working and co-locating, I think it's great to have people who might not have been exposed to the technology before, and now they're exposed to it for work, and it makes it something that's an everyday part of their life. It's like having your personal computer. You know, people did not have computers at home, and now you can't go into a home without one.
Well, now with computers in our pockets, I mean, we're, you know,
right.
I think that's a really good point. I mean,
friend.
But having that, you know, providing that service, people, that is a kind of a way for people to, there's an increased appetite for conversations around VR because people recognize that there's, you know, Zoom and Hangouts and all that does a number of things for us, which are fantastic, but there are limitations within that. And so people now want to understand what other opportunities are out there. So there's more of, I mean, when you're doing entertainment for VR, there's a question about return of investment, and there's a question of, you know, what's the why? And then now we're kind of into different conversations around, well, this is the why, it's how to connect people in a virtual space. I think LBE, you know, doesn't go away, because certainly there's a big question ahead of us, which is, you know, should the world open up again, there are shopping malls and there are places that will need to draw people back. And so how do you do that in a compelling way? So that still, you know, exists. But in the meantime, right now, the conversations are around tell us more about networking. You know, how might you connect with people in a virtual space? Tell us more about avatars, you know, how we might customize that. You know, there are different conversations because people recognize that, in fact, the uptake in terms of Zoom and on these things has been remarkably fast, and people are finding it of use. But now it's like, well, what else can we do? And then they knock on the door of VR.
Well, what do we think that the new suite of enterprise VR solutions are going to offer that we haven't seen before? So we're on Zoom right now. It's really bad for our eyesight, by the way, just looking at this tiny screen so close to us. But we don't really feel like I mean, I feel like I'm with you guys, but I don't feel like I'm present in a space with you guys. So that's an obvious thing, like being in the same presence as someone else. But from what you've seen, what do you think these kind of enterprise solutions are going to offer in VR that we haven't already got just online, on digital platforms online?
Yeah, I'll jump on this one here. So a couple of weeks ago, we announced our Vive XR suite, which in essence is a bundle of 5 applications for remote collaboration and socializing in VR.
Yeah.
So it's Vive Sync. This is an actual service that we have built in-house. Very interesting, actually, and obviously we started to use it a lot more as a team. So I'm based in London with one more team member, and then the rest of our team, they are in San Francisco or Taipei. And sometimes we jump into Vive Sync for the very reason of presence, where you need to problem solve and where you need a bit, you know, it enables you, I would say, like critical thinking and also creativity and creation. So you can pull in PowerPoint presentations and 3D assets and images and anything and everything, and you can truly start spatially collaborating together. Now, what was actually interesting as well, that in March, one of our team members had birthday, and we just very kind of spontaneously celebrated his birthday in Vive Sync. And it just kind of happened on the day because we didn't know it was his birthday, and he just like said it to someone. And we were all like, quick, okay, we need to create a quick birthday party. So we pulled in a birthday cake from Sketchfab. I was the one who actually jumped out of the birthday cake because why not? You know, it was huge. And then we sang him happy birthday, and it was pretty incredible. Now, fast forward to the last week, another team member had birthday, and we actually jumped into VR chat because VR chat actually has birthday worlds, and we were world hopping from one birthday world to another, and, you know, did even more crazy things than before and played some birthday tunes and whatnot. Which kind of brings me on to VR chat, which is actually a company that in 2017 we are one of their investors. And as a platform, they definitely have kind of exploded. I think for now, it's the biggest social VR platform out there, and it's you know, people are accessing it through VR headsets, but also on desktop. Yeah. And it's always up on any and every kind of VR app store as like top free app. And I do believe they have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of worlds, and it's all kind of powered by Unity, which obviously the VR chat is built in Unity, and they allow you to create worlds. So anything, and like anyone from, I don't know, probably the age of like 13 who starts messing about with Unity can create a world, all the way to obviously professionals who really know what they're doing, and then those worlds are beautiful. But I've been world hopping pretty much since March, and, you know, a lot more than ever before, and you know, anything for like just meeting friends for fun, or even holding meetings there, or even giving virtual tours to VR creators from the industry, especially those who are missing out on this live performance component. Yeah. Because you could bring that into VR chat. Then there is the Vive Museum as part of this XR suite, which is powered by the Museum of Other Realities. We actually also have invested into this company. And in essence, the core of the platform is to be able to come and, in a beautiful kind of virtual art gallery setting, enjoy VR native art. And then obviously there are also events, which I will let Lauren to talk about that later. And then there is the Vive Sessions, which is powered by the Engage platform, which is, in essence, that was built for education, but we hosted our developer conference in there, and that was kind of, it propelled them to build a platform also as a mega conferencing tool. And ever since, it kind of exploded as well. So even them as a business a little bit pivoted from education to also like conferencing. And then there is Vive Campus, which is powered by Virbella, which is also an education platform. So, and clearly, you know, this would have happened as before as well, but I think because of the situation that we're in right now, it accelerated it. There's a true need for it right now.
So it sounds like Vive have really accelerated their involvement and their investment. Who in this panel is regularly using co-working, co-presenting, co-locating virtual reality applications? Be honest.
What's regular? But yeah, but what's regular?
You know, your day-to-day, like, because I'm on Zoom every day.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm not necessarily jumping into the headset to co-work with people. And as Maria said, it's really accelerated. But are these, you know, do we feel like these tools are like pick up and go tools? You want to be? I know you do, Maria, so it's not a question for you. But for the other panelists, are these pick up and go tools? Are you ready to jump in these tools to do your work?
I think the problem is that not enough people have the headsets still. So, you know, whereas everybody has a computer really now, or a phone where you can use Zoom. And that sounds like such an obvious point, but that friction is the problem, the main problem at the moment.
At Nexus, you guys are all creating VR applications. So you're
we don't all necessarily have all headsets though. I mean, at Sky VR, we all had headsets, but at Nexus, it's a smaller group, you know, because they're expensive things to invest in, and Nexus has to be on top of everything all the time. But what we do is we're now doing a lot of work that uses the equipment that people have. So mobile phones, people are much more likely to upgrade their mobile phone and have one that can support fantastic XR experiences. So in my opinion, like, that's the way to get this stuff out there quickly. And then you can even have location-based experiences. We're releasing something in South Korea on Monday. It's at Changdok Palace, which is a palace that I didn't know about until this project happened. And I did not direct this. Alex at Nexus did that, but it's a wonderful volumetric piece where you've got animated creatures taking you around the palace. You've got performances from actors that people can then see outside. So it is socially distant. It's possible to do the things socially distantly. It's actually safer because it means that the actors don't have to be there, you know, at risk with the public all the time. They do this one performance and then it gets, you know, you can access it at any time, and you can, you know, have fewer people crowding around to do the thing. So, I mean, I think that putting these experiences into the tech that people already have is a pretty significant leap forward to help people get into XR.
Yeah. Mike, do you think, or Lauren, do you think that it could be the other way around as well? That, you know, if you see these amazing applications and you want a headset?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, I mean, one, I feel like I'm probably much like you, I'm spending 9 hours a day on these Zoom calls, and there's no, like, after I get at the end of the day, I just want to go out, you know, outside. There's no desire for me to, like, put on the headset at that moment. But I think that one thing that, you know, we really, you know, we need is the ability to read human faces, you know, to see, you know, I can whether it's expressions. And so, you know, that's a limitation. And I'm, you know, not a big fan of kind of the weird and creepy avatar, or, you know, it's like, that's a creative challenge of how you are exchanging emotions, you know, in a virtual space. So I think that, you know, is a whole other talk about how you direct a production remotely, you know, like this, you know, with, and so it's enough of a challenge to have, like, you know, teams of people out there dotted around and making sure that they have, you know, the right equipment, but like, if you're developing something that requires, you know, innovation, there's so much room for miscommunication. So I think we're still at, you know, my take is that we still need this, where I can see you, Dan, and I can, you know, read some body language. That's my take.
What about you, Lauren? How are you finding your forays into these virtual applications?
Well, you know, it's interesting because, I mean, I'm definitely on Zoom all day long. It's a difficult life, but this is but this is, hey, we're employed, right? But there is, I've seen even the adoption of Zoom happen in a very interesting way, because this is something that I've been using for years, not Zoom, but I use another platform called Whereby, where as a curator, I'm speaking to creators and artists from across the globe, and I want to have an interactive experience with them. So I've been using it, and some of my colleagues were like, oh, that's cool, but never thought to use it, like, amongst ourselves until we were forced to. And now everyone is so used to it. I think that the only thing that is missing is with jumping into that headset world is, as Kinley said, you know, the friction of the hardware and the barrier to entry. But it's I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a mistake that Facebook bought Oculus. You know, I think that they have an interest in gaming, but they have obviously a more vested interest in connecting people. And when you see what they're working on in terms of, you know, like what Mike was saying with photorealistic avatars, this can change just your life, not just the way you work, but the way you live and interact with family, the way families spread across the globe. If you're able to actually feel that kind of presence or duplicate that presence in a real and meaningful way, it can be powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in with kind of a couple of tech insights here. So eye tracking already exists. However, not yet in any of these social VR platforms that, natural, that could be a natural next
You mean
step.
the headset seeing where you look?
Yeah, and basically maintaining eye contact. So we have our first headset in this kind of direction is the Vive Pro Eye, which for now is largely has been used for enterprises. But I mean, it doesn't mean that any of these social VR platforms couldn't just turn that on. But again, then the question remains adoption of these kind of headsets and, bringing out headsets on the market that have a lower price point. Lip tracking or kind of bottom jaw tracking. We also have like a lip tracking module that you can clip on these headsets, which for now is more in like a developer kit stage, but we're definitely experimenting with, realistic avatar facial expression. And I think where the real kind of, another aha moment has happened for me is, even though I have been in the VR space for a while and I have tried, full body tracked, kind of full body presence in VR experiences, largely at like some location based kind of setups or like performances and so on, where you as a participant, you also wore Vive trackers. Yeah. And then I set up with full body tracking for VR chat. And, you can dance, you can jump. And it was that kind of an aha moment when, most of us, you guys will remember, is like going from 3DOF to 6DOF. Now going from 6DOF to fully body tracked avatar, that's another like, oh, wow, this is bizarre. This really changes everything, especially if you're able. I normally select characters from games that have like high polygon count and look like almost, human-like or lifelike. And it's just great fun. So what I've been doing more in my free time is meeting with VR friends in London, and, we can't meet in real life, but actually, why not meeting in a virtual nightclub and have a little dance?
Well, we did some.
And actually, on that note, 4 weeks ago, there's the Fête de la Musique festival in France, which is kind of championed by the French Ministry of Culture, and they commissioned Jean-Michel Jarre, who is a pioneer in electronic music since the 70s, to be fully, live mocapped, DJ, and he actually, his set was something like 40 minutes long in VR chat, and there was a whole set design to it, which was just beautiful. You entered this space and it looked like a cathedral to music. And there he was, speaking in French, speaking in English, really creating an atmosphere. And what was really, there's several magical moments. I literally loved every minute of it. I even recorded a little video of myself because you can do that in VR chat. You can have your little virtual selfie stick following you. But what was really cool, before the club opened, we were already in VR chat, like, I don't know, like 30 people. And, like when you have that feeling, potentially, when you're like a teenager and you're going to a nightclub for the first time and like, oh, are we going to get in? Are we not going to get in? And, there's the bouncer. And we were like, oh my God, are we going to make it into the VIP session, into the VIP instance? And we were like little kids, literally like, we're going to get in. And like, oh, I need to exit and come in and out. So luckily enough, most of us made it into the VIP session, because there were several instances, which is, currently the technical limitation of these platforms. If you were not in the real VIP instance, then you still saw Jean-Michel Jarre and heard the music and everything. He was just like a kind of like a live video feed. But obviously seeing him with full body tracking and in motion captures through that, and that really created that kind of presence like at a virtual concert. It was just brilliant.
We're starting to see the rise of virtual events, aren't we? And the playground's not gone. The playground's just shifting to the virtual space, right? So
it's accelerated.
It has accelerated. So Lauren, what's been your experience of your own virtual festivalization? Because that is engaging with kind of the one end of enterprise, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We had to move quickly to figure out what we would do in terms of exhibiting the work that we spent such a long time programming, and we were very excited to share that work with audiences. And the first thing, the first kind of virtualization of the immersive program was our 360, our Tribeca Cinema 360, which we were able to pivot and put that on Oculus, and specifically on Oculus TV. And it was really, really, really eye-opening, because we were able to cultivate a new audience and look at a different way to show this work. It was pretty much, honestly, if you had the experience in Quest, it was virtually what you would have had at the festival, in terms of seeing these curated programs of 360 work shown together, and they were grouped thematically, and it was presented very, very beautifully. So kudos to all of the folks at Oculus that we worked with to make that happen. I think that's one thing, because it's closer to a cinematic experience and it's closer to a theatrical experience. But when it came to the idea of virtualizing 6DOF experiences and things that, I think Tribeca and other festivals have become known for really fully immersive installations where you feel drawn into the storytelling before you ever put a headset on. That was a challenge, but we did work with the Museum of Other Realities, which Maria mentioned before. We looked at a lot of different solutions for this, but something about the Moore is that their developer team is very strong, but also just their visual aesthetics are very strong, and I think that was important for us to say, okay, we're presenting artwork in a certain context, and we want people to feel as though they are in an actual venue that has given some thought to how this artwork is presented. And we gave our creators an opportunity to kind of dress out their installations in the way that they would have at Tribeca, and use some of those assets from their actual experience to create these rooms that you could walk into and then jump directly into the full 6DOF experience, which, it was the first time, that and VRAM, which happened, I think just a week before we did with CanXR, or 2 weeks before. That was the first time that I had experiences like this. And it was really, really eye-opening, again, because in talking to all of the curators, and I saw, many of you, I saw you in there as robot avatars, and we talked to each other, and we gave each other virtual drinks, and we watched a DJ on a screen and all that kind of good stuff. But talking to other curators, everyone was really open to the idea that this should be an addition. This should be an enhancement, and not as it is right now. It's an alternative. It's a necessary alternative. But what an interesting enhancement to be able to build the experience in a different way and reach different audience members with even with the 360 that we put online, during the window of the festival. Whereas we all have that problem of throughput when you're dealing with location-based experiences. Whereas we would have only been able to serve about 4,000 guests for our 360 pieces, we had 43,000 viewers over the course of those 9 days. So that changes the way that we look at it entirely. And it also just does exactly what we're trying to do as a festival, which is amplify the profile of the work and the creators. So I think it's here to stay. I do think that there are a lot of options there.
Yeah, we talked a bit about this kind of acceleration, and I think we're all aware that there's like furious peddling going on with these guys, aren't they? Like Museum of Other Realities and others that are developing with horrendously intense timelines because everybody needs this product now, right? So
it's horrible.
Yes.
And you're not even the one that's having to build it.
Exactly. I'm just visiting, like, it's not ready yet, like that. But it's impossible, but they're making the impossible possible somehow.
That's beautiful. And Mike, you've got some experience of this right now. Like you're looking to develop something in the event space that's native to VR.
And it is accelerated. I mean, I think that we're working on a project that normally you would go like, right, we'll take 8 or 10 months and we're doing it in 4. It does feel like this, relentless pace. But And I wanted to pick up on something that Lauren said about, you know, enhancements. I do think that there are businesses that want to have conversations around what, you know, what they're calling hybrids. So it's not like a replacement for festivals. It's like saying, look, let's have a virtual reality component that enhances the experience, but there's also a digital side. So it's again another way to onboard people to say, look, it's not replacing, it's not black or white. It's a different way to bring people onto into the content. But yes, I think that we are in an accelerated space, and it's and it will continue to iterate, you know, all of this, you know, until the point where we get to having a meaningful exchange with people in a virtual space. So there's a lot of work to do to get there, and so there's a great goal, because I think it's not only a great creative challenge, but I mean it's a real service ultimately.
Yeah, and the future is obviously going to be these new sides of the fence working together to create enterprising. It's the same, isn't it? It's creativity and innovation, which I'm just looking now at the Q&A channel going, so I'm gonna say,
Dan, can I just one little teaser before we get into questions? So actually our own VR app store and online distribution platform, Viveport, will be the host platform for Venice VR experiences this year. So people will be able to come to our app store, those who obviously have PC VR headsets, but not just Vive, but we support all of them. So the whole Vive family, Rift S, Vive Index, Windows Mixed Reality headsets. And you will be able to access the selection for free. And then in addition to this kind of partnership, it's like a three-way partnership. The social events will be happening in VR chat. So I genuinely, I cannot wait to see that kind of you know, Venice VR island in VR chat. So I'm sure that the creators and obviously Liz and Michelle, who are curating the event, they are cooking up something very exciting.
well, we'll all be in their masks.
Oh yeah, Venetian masks.
I'm going to go to Q&A now because there's lots and lots of questions. And Kim, I'm going to come to you because there's a big question here, but I'm going to try and narrow it down. Someone has asked, what comes first, creativity or innovation? But another person has also asked, is there any sign that working from home is driving people to creative experiences? Are you finding, you know, you're a creative director, you're finding that working from home and this exposure to all these new tools is making you think differently about how you create for audiences?
I mean, I definitely think in the medium of, I'm thinking more in the medium of things that people have got. So for instance, I'm doing some personal work at the moment that is a Zoom-like experience. It's an augmented reality piece, multiplayer interactive narrative that you can experience through a video call. And that is because of everything we've gone through. It's like directly because of that. But then at the same time, you know, a lot of the creative experience for animators and people who work to these sorts of pipelines, it is quite nice, like kind of being by yourself a little bit in some ways. Like, you know, in the structure of it, you know, you've got a call then, so I've got this amount of time to work and I'm not going to get interrupted for that, apart from, you know, my child and my life. But like, you know, these are nice things. But yeah, there's lots of room to work this way. I've told somebody on the chat that I would bring up the Tempest, and then I'm worried that I've hidden the question by answering it.
That was my next question.
Was that your next question? Ask that question.
Because I've done it, and I think you've done it, Maria's done it. So we haven't talked about it much, right? But performance has always been there, and we talked a lot about like reality and virtual reality performance. But now we've got this interesting moment where we're going to virtual spaces and people are performing live and being beamed into our headsets. So let's pick up on that. Like, first of all, who loved it? I loved it.
I will love it when I finally get a ticket.
No spoilers then. But it's brilliant.
Because that's a really
Samantha,
isn't it? So it's an app called The Underrepresented, and they're doing a version of the Tempest, and someone's live motion captured effectively, and you're a participant. Do you want to pick it up from there, Kim and Maria?
I mean, the set design is lovely. The aesthetic of it is beautiful. And I think like my favorite part, if I had to pick one thing, is that the most unique bit for me is that interaction of how you get around. You know, that the way you kind of pull the world towards you. I don't think I've
really
seen
good
that anywhere
locomotion.
else.
Yeah.
I loved that.
I think Samantha and team, they did it in virtual reality, where you pulled a headset to jump between these virtual worlds, which was their very first VR game. Which actually I programmed it for Rain Dance in 2017, and it won an award actually.
I think it won at Venice as well, didn't it?
And then what was really interesting, that rather than letting us as participants speak, you couldn't. Sorry, Lauren.
No spoilers. No
However,
spoilers.
Basically communication was happening through hand gestures, through teleporting, through props, through the host, the actress or actor, kind of assigning us roles in the story, and it was very natural, actually.
I did find that fascinating, that that line between agency and, you know, storytelling, and how much the fact that you couldn't speak, I think was good, because you clearly knew then what you could do. And then wouldn't have to bat off. I imagine audiences could get irritating if you could just be like, nah, through the whole thing.
No,
but
then what's your line? Or do you improvise?
That's the most important part of that experience. I have spent, I'll say, I have spent hours and hours in the underrepresented. I just haven't seen Tempest yet. And I think that thing of taking the communication away and allowing you to just snap, you know, in order to get people's attention, I think it's brilliant, because you start to create this language with strangers who are in their life, and it's an interaction that somehow does become meaningful, and it somehow brings you to these different places, and you can roll with people that you have no idea who they are, and you're just enjoying the experience.
Has actually any of you also tried Adventure Lab, which is closer to like an escape room game?
I haven't tried that yet.
Sorry, it was. The company is called Adventure Lab, the Dr. Crumb School of Disobedient Pets. So it's a 4-people co-op
playground is
gaming experience. In fact, it definitely is a game. And I think they're still running it. So just go on to Adventure Lab and buy yourself a ticket. Please do it. And then you are a bunny, or, you know, you're one of these pets, or a hamster. I think I was a hamster. And then you need to puzzle solve, you need to work together, and each puzzle or every mission has like a time to it. And then there is one actor who was absolutely brilliant, and he played 2 characters, the host and then the kind of mad scientist, the bad guy, who then turned into a good guy. And then you even received in your inbox after, you know, your experience, like a little video clip recording, which obviously you could, you know, it's a little memory or a little postcard, or you could tweet it. But it was truly brilliant. It was basically a multiplayer co-op game, but live with live actor, and quite an eye-opener as well. And very different to the Tempest, because here it was all about voice communication, as well as, oh, do this, teleport there, oh, this is the keyword here, this is the, you know, the little thing to do next, and pull that lever, and oh, come here, oh, save me. And it's just truly brilliant.
Well, as I said, the playground is alive and well, and thank God.
Definitely.
I have another question from our wonderful audience, which is a really good one. I want to ask it. How can we reconcile people without headsets being able to attend and try VR in LBE settings versus festivals in 2020, moving to platforms that now require PC VR headsets? A lot of folks may not have a headset, or they may only have a Quest.
I mean, I don't know, I'll be really quick. I know I've only got like less than a minute, but yeah, I mean, Nexus are doing loads of stuff with, so we're working on augmented reality theatre at the moment with phones. So being able to get to working with story futures, we got another story futures piece where we're live capturing actors and using that motion capture to drive, to put people into your living room and getting a performance that way. So you can use phones and iPads to watch this stuff. Mm-hmm. Again, it's about ways of getting these experiences into devices that people have already got, which I think just brings that barrier down, makes it more accessible for people.
It's a great example.
I fully expect that. I fully expect to see that as a trend in creation as well over the next year. You know, even for in-person experiences. Just the idea of having something that's less of a touchy-feely point of a tablet or a phone, as opposed to something that you put on your face. It is going to take people a while to feel comfortable doing that again. I hope, you know, I think that we will get there, but not next month, not in time for Venice. But yeah, I mean, I think that AR is a solution for sure. And then with the people that do not have headsets, I think that this is yet another incentive to maybe get one. And then, right? Right?
Do Dr. Crump's imaginary pets.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that sound fun? We all want to do that. I'm logging on right after this and see what it is.
Please do.
But also, I mean, it's also cultivating a group of interested, another group of audience, right? So there are people that have headsets that still could care less about Tribeca Film Festival. What is that, right? They have a headset for Half-Life. So those people now are interested in maybe seeing some different types of work. And I think that cultivation is really interesting to kind of expand people's definition of what XR is overall.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to wrap up because we've gone over. But I'm going to wrap by saying that it feels to me like the playground hasn't gone, actually. The playground has just evolved, and there are new kids who come to play in the playground. And we need to play nicely with them because we've got some great games. We've got some really great games up our sleeves, and they've just got some new toys that were like, wow! With your new toys and our ideas for games, we're going to have so much fun, right? So I'd like to say a huge thank you to you guys, my lovely panelists, for the great conversation. I really enjoyed it. To Lauren Hammonds from the Immersive Programmer at Tribeca. Maria Rakasanova, the curator of Rain Dance and Viveport, Kim Lee Pontin, immersive artist and producer extraordinaire, and Mike Ogden, creative director and immersive story consultant. Thank you so much. Before we go, I'd like to say thanks once more to Crossover, to Tom and Mark, to 2A, to Louise and Doug for the previous session. And I'd like to recommend that you go and check out as much as you can of Electric Dreams online. It's a true joy. There are some amazing shows. And of course, these conference sessions happen every Thursday. And it feels like a neat segue to say that, you know, next Thursday you should come back for Head-Mounted Dismay. Looking at LBE and the future crashes into the internet. And so that'll be happening next Thursday between 4 and 6 p.m. So thank you so much, my lovely panelists. I'll see you in VR chat.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
See you in other realities.
Thanks, team. Thanks,
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.